As a manager, it's your role to manage the performance of your employees and also address when they are not performing and addressing underperformance. But for most emerging leaders, this feels really difficult. Often we are not trained on how to manage performance, how to have these difficult conversations, and which steps to follow and take. So as a result, we might ignore the issue, we might hope that it will go away by itself, or we then address it in a rush and it gets emotional and ineffective for both sides. Don't worry, I got you, because in this video I'm going to share with you the essence of underperformance, the risks of not addressing underperformance, and then also an 8-step framework you can use to address and manage underperformance with an employee. But before we get into that, I would love to share with you that I've just published a new leadership cheat sheet series. These cheat sheets are especially designed for performance management and feedback conversations. They're really good summarized pocket guide that you can refer back to whenever you need to prepare for a difficult conversation or prepare for a performance review. You can check out these packs under koopmann.com/cheat sheets. Let's first look at what is underperformance? Underperformance or poor performance can include several things. Of course, it can mean that somebody is not achieving their goals and fulfilling their tasks and duties in the role. And also they might do their task, but not to the required standard. And so they might be missing details, or they might be sending documents out with lots of mistakes, or they might just not put enough effort into the outcome. Another form of underperformance that they show disruptive or toxic behavior. Or maybe they fail to comply with workplace procedures. For example, something like health and safety procedures. What are the risks of underperforming employees? If you do not address underperformance timely and quickly, then it can have some negative implications for you and the team. Your overall performance of your team might suffer because you have one person that really drags everyone down. The team morale or team culture might suffer because people might get really frustrated with one person that are not doing what they're supposed to do. And it can create feelings of resentment and unfairness and really bring your culture down, and therefore also then lead to lower engagement of your team members. There might be a reduced trust in you as their leader, because if the rest of the team does not see that you are actually taking their issues seriously or that you're treating everyone fairly, they might start to not trust you anymore, which will then have an impact on your relationships with them. There could be health and safety risks, of course, if they do not follow certain procedures, and it could have serious impacts on somebody's safety. And of course, you can have overall business risks if somebody is not doing their job properly or to the correct standard. Could have impacts with regards to your clients and stakeholders and overall company performance. So it's really important that you as a leader do not ignore the issue. You want to make sure that you address it as soon as you can, so it doesn't even become this big thing that nobody wants to talk about, this big elephant in the room. Very rarely do these situations solve themselves. Yes, sometimes underperforming employee might move on by themselves and apply for different roles, but most likely they will stay and they will create all these mentioned issues that can have an impact on your high performers. You will feel resentment, you will feel frustrated, and your energy levels will drop, and it will cost you a lot of emotional energy to not bring it up. Whilst you might feel like having this conversation with an underperforming employee, especially if you have been ignoring it, if it's been going on for a while, you might feel like starting this process now will feel way too big and exhausting. Not doing something will actually cost you way more energy because it will go on for a longer period of time. So trust me, it will be more exhausting if you do not address it now. The best time is now, and it's important that you choose courage over comfort. As a leader, it's one of the most important principles. So if you've clicked on this video because you have a specific employee in mind and maybe you have been waiting for too long to address it, don't worry, just follow these 8 steps that I will share with you now and it will start to get better. Step number 1 is understand your internal processes. If you work for an organization, they most likely will have some standard procedures that explain how to manage performance and underperformance. It's important that you do get an understanding for what these procedures mean and how the process is described. Because often, before you can let somebody go, you have to show as a leader that you've given them enough time and conversation and followed the process to help them improve their performance before you escalate the issue. Before you start to address the problem, understand internal procedures to make sure that you properly prepare every step along the way and follow these rules. Step number 2 is to reflect on the potential cause. Now, here you might not know the real cause, but it's important that you start to identify and reflect on where the issues might stem from. Underperformance can have multitude of reasons, and each cause and each reason will result in a different strategy to deal with it. So whilst you of course want to confirm the cause with the employee, it's important that you start to get a bit of a feeling and an idea for it, because that will determine how you approach this situation. Some causes could be around unclear expectations and goals. So they might not really be aware of what's expected from them and the standard that you expect. Often this is the case with the people that I work with and my clients in coaching, that they either have taken over an employee in a team and have not really circled back on expectations, or they've changed their expectations or priorities have changed. They've never clearly addressed and communicated the level of quality and the level of performance they actually require. So often as a leader, there is a big part that you play in making sure that these things are clarified. Another reason could be that the goals are actually not in the circle of control of your employees. So I've seen it quite often that company goals are just copy and pasted into the performance management plan for the year, and they're not really relatable or even in the circle of control of the employee. And so if they're measured against a performance that they can't do anything about, then this is quite a bit unfair and they will never be able to reach these goals. Another reason could be a lack of knowledge and skill. So some employees will be quite vocal about what they can't and can't do and feel quite confident about talking about it, but other employees feeling uncomfortable being vulnerable and sharing something that they don't know yet or are not good at. So in that case, then also the performance and the quality won't be aligned to your expectations, and it's due to their lack of skills in this area. Another reason could be that the tasks are not aligning with what's motivating and engaging for them. Sometimes there's a history of disappointment and a lack of recognition, so they've kind of given up or feel resentful or feeling like they've lost and they've just disengaged. Sometimes there are personal issues with their family or in their personal lives that will, sometimes the whole workplace has a toxic environment or there's a low morale that can, of course, impact the performance of your employees. Sometimes it's interpersonal issues or misunderstandings due to different cultures. And sometimes there could be workplace bullying as well. So as you can see, there's a range of root causes for underperformance. So if an employee is underperforming, it does not automatically mean that they do this on purpose. And I think as a leader, this is really important to keep in mind, because it's so easy to judge someone or get frustrated with them if they're not performing, because they make our life harder and are impacting team performance. But often it's a root cause that requires our empathy to kind of connect with and understand with what's been going on. Step number 3 is to get input from other stakeholders. And this is really important because sometimes our own judgments, our own unconscious bias will play a part in how we see a person and how we think about them and their performance. So we want to challenge ourselves by getting some other views of it and also hearing about certain achievements, maybe in other areas that we have not seen yet or forgotten about. And then also, of course, hearing how other people perceive the person. Because sometimes there could be personal issues that you might have with the personality of a person that then leads you to judge their performance differently. Of course, here you want to be careful whenever you approach anyone else for feedback about an employee. You want to make sure that it's done discreetly and respectfully. Step number 4 is to reflect on your contribution. As a leader, you always play a role in the performance and in the issues you might have with an employee. Based on the root cause, your contribution could be that you were not clear enough in setting expectations or goals. You might have not clearly addressed that there is an issue whenever you noticed it first. So if you saw something that wasn't quite right, but you didn't talk about it, you didn't address, you didn't stick to your boundaries, you didn't give any feedback, then you might not have addressed it and they would have never known that there was an issue in the first place. Maybe also there's no standardized or transparent performance management system, so they have not been subject to regular feedback conversations and regular performance management. Maybe they are not yet used to how to measure KPIs and how to take responsibility for their performance. And Also, as I hinted to before, your unconscious bias could be at play. If we start to think and feel a bit negatively about a person, then we will look at this person with this negative filter, and we will see and judge everything that they do with this filter on. And so it can become a little bit unfair, and we might not be even aware that we do this. We might spend less time with a person, we might have less one-on-one meetings, we might even provide them with less details, we might provide less opportunities for them to grow and show that they've improved or show what they can do and deliver. So it's really important that you also are honest to yourself, put a mirror in front of yourself and start to challenge your unconscious bias that might be at play. Step number 5 is to prepare the meeting. And here you want to take some time to really assess the performance. You want to get details and facts and data about goals and targets and KPIs so that you have the facts to back up whatever you're going to share. You want to become really clear about your desired outcome of the conversation and why you want to have this conversation and address this issue. For your feedback, you need to prepare specific examples so that for whatever you want to share with them, you have specific examples of situations that you observed and you're really clear about the impact. And you also want to become really clear on what good will look like. There's nothing worse than a leader giving feedback to someone and just say, you got to do better. You're not doing enough. You're not good enough. You're not this and you're not that. Then how should they improve? How should they do anything differently? How should they get better from here? You got to be specific in what you actually want to see so that it's easy for them to understand what they can change and what good look like and how they can actually get there. And then as part of the preparation, you also want to communicate with the employee and give them time to prepare as well. Give them a heads up that this is happening and that you want to talk to them about their performance and maybe some ideas of what they can prepare for the conversation. Depending how serious this is, depending how far down the track of underperformance and escalating you are, you might also want to offer them to invite a support person or invite HR to the conversation to make sure that it is a fair conversation and that they don't feel threatened by this. Step number 6 is to meet with the employee. And in this video, I will just share some key factors about it. But if you want to have a more deep dive into managing and leading difficult conversations, then check out this video up here. You want to conduct this meeting in a safe and quiet and private place and at a good time for both of you. You then want to explain your desired outcome of the conversation and what your concerns are. You need to make it clear that you want to work on this and that you want to see them improve and that that's important for you. You might want to say something like this. I've observed an issue with your performance and I know that you can do better. And I know that I've also played a part in this, but I really want us to work on this and I want us to figure out an improvement plan going forward. You want to then clearly outline the required improvement and what this can look like. What are the examples that you've prepared to help them see the difference of their performance and the desired outcome? You then want to explain and own your contribution and share what you've seen and what you have realized about your own way in handling this. And then you want to give the employee opportunity to respond, share their thoughts. And you really want to listen here. You really want to, close this mouth and really just listen to what they have to say, their side of the story, their perspective on things that they've struggled with, and really start to understand and figure out the root cause for the issue. Because by getting their view, you then want to confirm where the root cause stems from and to really be both on the same page on what the root cause is for the issue, because that will then help you both to define the actions going forward. Of course, you got to make sure that this person is coachable and that they are willing to change, that they do want your help and that they do want to move forward. And then you want to discuss a solution together. Ensure that they understand what's expected and then think about what you can do both to move forward and to improve. What are specific actions they can take to show that they want to invest in their development and that they want to improve their skills and improve their knowledge, for example. It's important to engage them in these brainstorming conversations around the solutions because you want them to really buy into that. If you come up with all the ideas, then there's a risk that they don't want to accept it and that they just say yes, yes, and then in their mind they're actually not really following you and are not on the same page. It might be that they're not able to really go into the solution mode right away. Maybe after sharing the feedback, after them sharing their perspective, they might need some time to manage their emotions, to work it through, to reflect. So that's totally okay. This conversation doesn't need to happen in one go. If you feel like they need a bit of time, have a break or reschedule to come together the next day. If an employee's performance is suffering due to personal problems, you also might want to refer them to your employee assistance program so that they can get the support that they need. So the next step, now that you've brainstormed solutions, is to create a plan. What are you and your employee are going to be doing differently? What are measurable actions that you can agree on? Define resources that they might need, training that I might need, or other development actions as well. Could be also that you decide to do a 360 review, and also make sure that you clarify timeframes here and when things are going to happen. Give them enough time to work on their improvements. And the last step is to document everything that was discussed. Put it in a shared document where you both have access to and we can refer back to whenever you need to. And this plan should include timeframes and milestones for you to check back in and follow up on what was discussed. Step number 7 is to monitor and follow up. Now that you've defined it all in a plan and you had your conversation, this is really key for you as a leader to not just follow up once. You got to follow up. You got to show that you take this seriously. Often this is where it breaks down and falls apart, is because the leader does not follow up. So make sure that you stick to the dates that you've defined and that you come back to the employee, provide more feedback, check in where they are at, and then follow the steps that you have discussed. And step number 8, take actions if things don't change. So if things do not get better and if the performance does not improve, you need to have a conversation about the consequences, like letting the person go or finding alternative roles in the organization. Make sure you follow procedure and you check with HR to make sure that you follow these steps properly. Letting someone go is a really tough decision and should not be taken lightly. I don't think it's fair to just give up too quickly without you having put in enough effort. But if you have followed the process, if you have invested time and energy and had really proper conversations with the employee to highlight what needs to change, and you followed up and nothing is changing, then it might be the best for them and also for you and the rest of the team to let them go. Sometimes they might not be in the right role, in the right department for this point in time, and you can find some other solutions within the organization without having to let them go. So as a summary, a few key points to keep in mind. Do not wait. You got to bring up when people are not performing to the desired standard, or if they are crossing boundaries or not following company procedures. You have to have the conversation as soon as possible. The second thing is really reflect on your contribution. There's always a part that you play as a leader as well. And I know this is not easy to hear necessarily, but there's always something that you have contributed to this issue as well. Number 3, have a two-way conversation. You get to share your view, but you also have to listen to what the employee has to say to determine the real root cause and to determine what happened and what they need. Key thing number 4 is to keep it confidentially. Really respect this. Make it discreet. This is a very, very vulnerable process for an employee to go through, and you want to make sure you treat them respectfully and kind and manage this as discreetly as you can. And the last and most important key tip to remember is to follow up regularly. The success lies in the follow-up. As I said before, one of the key things and the most common issues for underperformance is actually that expectations and goals have not been set properly. So if this rings true for you, you might want to watch this video where I share with you how to set expectations with your employees effectively.